You're set.
Thanks so much, everyone, for coming together today. Today is Friday, May 8th, 2020. It is 9:06 p.m. and I will call this special city council meeting to order. We've got 3 items on our agenda today, and we'll go ahead and get started with agenda item number 1, proposed resolution 29-2020, a resolution continuing the declaration of local emergency due to COVID-19 novel coronavirus. Is there a motion? Go ahead and raise your hand. Tawny?
I move to approve proposed resolution 29-2020, a resolution continuing the declaration of local emergency due to COVID-19 novel coronavirus.
Thank you, Tawny. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Karen? Thank you, Karen. Any discussion? Karen?
So I was just curious to ask staff, how long do we see being in this emergency declaration of local emergency? Will we continue this again? Because it looks like the county extended theirs until almost August or September or something like that.
Well, ultimately, that's a decision for you guys. That's why we keep bringing it back to you. The Emergency Management Act of the state says that once we declare it, it has to be renewed by you guys every 30 days. So I don't want to speak to what the county did or how they extended theirs, but the state code requires a 30-day review of it once we declare it by the legislative body every 30 days. So I think we need to remain in it until we have definitely peaked and come off the peak. So if there's something that happens in the interim, that we have the ability to respond. Obviously, we initially used it to do 4 or 5 things right out the gate, but we haven't since that first 2 weeks. I don't think we've used the powers that it grants since then. But we don't want to let it expire and then 3 weeks from now, a month from now, a month and a half from now, we see a resurgence and all of a sudden we need to start taking actions and we're trying to call emergency meetings and just run into that problem.
Ronnie, you had a comment, and then Mike.
Oh, sorry. No, I think I was just, who knows, gesturing to myself. Go ahead.
So Emily, if I may ask, I've seen the flurry of letters that yourself and various council members have written, which is great, all on the COVID response and representing local government and trying to inform businesses and all that kind of good stuff. And all that's great. I guess my question for you is, because this is a health department order, so forth, and we're just kind of a intermediary, as it were, to what extent are you guys getting pounded, I guess, by inquiries from businesses and so forth about what to do, and to what extent are you just trying to make it clear to businesses that this is what is expected of them? I ask, okay, because, for example, I've been over shopping here in town, talking to a few different owners, and then same thing over in Grand Junction. And a lot of the owners are, their degrees of worryiness varies anywhere from, if you want to come in the store, be sure you wear a mask, to they don't care. So could you elaborate a little bit on that, on how much of this is being driven from the impetus at the city directed downwards, and how much of it is grateful help that you're providing from businesses who would like to know what they're supposed to do?
Well, I think for this order, like Joel was saying, the order is to just, be renewed by us every 30 days. The additional, communication from City Hall has been absolutely consistent with the health department and the hospital and the other agencies that are associated. So, Joel, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I think we're conflating different orders and different ideas is what we're talking about. The health department and their orders and what they're doing are over here. This emergency management order is for the city to give me and our administrative staff the authority that if we need to take certain actions. Initially, when this started, we had to take some actions that had to do with rentals at Walnut Lane. We had to take some actions that had to do with trash pickup. We had to take some actions with how we were dealing with trash reductions and inflow increases that normally would have taken a month, 2 months, 3 months for us to take a contractual amendment through the process and get the approval of the council. And we needed stuff decided that day in order to make it work. So this is giving the city emergency management powers to make decisions in an emergency in the real time. So the masks, the closures, all of that the health department's doing is completely separate than from what we're talking about with what we're giving us the authority to do.
Ronnie?
And I just wanted to add to what Joel said, that was an important part of the emergency order in my understanding, along with it enables us to apply for any state and federal monies that may come up that go with this. But I mean, obviously, Mike's, so we decide, whether we answer Mike's question now or later. But yeah, I agree, it's different.
So if is there any further discussion about this particular emergency order in front of us?
Well, I get, if I may, Mayor.
Sure.
So is this, Joel, does this allow you, to close certain departments, or, is that also part of that? Because there's been some information in the community that, we can't open the rec center because it hasn't been brought to the city council. But that seems not.
That has nothing to do with, I have the authority outside of that to open and close departments, change departments, restructure the city regardless of this.
Okay.
If we chose to open the MRAC, that's not something I need to bring to council for approval. I can make that decision regardless. The problem with the MRAC runs much deeper than that. The problem with the MRAC is staffing it, manning it, the cost associated with what that goes into, providing a clean and safe environment. Those issues have not been resolved. All of the hotels have been allowed to reopen. Not a single hotel has been allowed to reopen their pools since they've been allowed to reopen. So the health department has told all of the hotels, you can reopen, but you cannot open your pool. There are health and safety concerns that are going with the pools. And so we're trying to mitigate those. We're trying to financially, with the revenue crunch that we're now under, trying to figure out how we could possibly open the pool. But the revenue is one of the largest hurdles. The cost to operate the pool to the limited number of people we could allow to go in there is astronomical. And we're going to present all that to you guys on Tuesday night and show you what it would cost to open the pool for 12 people to lap swim a day. And it is a big number.
Okay. No, I saw that information, and I have never seen where you were asking approval from us to close or to open anything. So that was just a clarification on my point. Okay.
Well, those armchair quarterbacks.
Ronnie, did you have something that you were
It wasn't really important. I think Joel covered it. Yeah, I was just going to say that and maybe we'll touch on it in the budget part, but my understanding with the pool is, there's some overlap with the health department there too. So whereas Joel has his own powers to open and close things, in this scenario, I think under the virus, we first fall under the health department and what they tell us we can and can't do.
So the irony is, under the health department order currently, none of the hotels are allowed to, no private pools are allowed to open, but they have allowed gyms and municipal pools the authority to open if they so choose. I think they're feeling that pressure as well, and they've just passed the buck on that one. So that one's, the pool is ours at this point to make that decision, but there's a lot that goes into that other than we're not out of the woods. We have not peaked. We have not come down off the peak. Like, we're getting impatient as a community and as a nation on some levels. And just because some things are starting to open, by no means does that mean like, oh, this is behind us. Let's just start rolling out the red carpet and get things going again. Like, it's not where we're at.
Okay, so any further deliberation or discussion needed? Okay, roll call vote. Karen?
Aye.
Tawny?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Ronnie?
Aye.
Kaylin?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. We're now on agenda item number 2, proposed resolution 28, 2020, a resolution approving the golf course lease agreement. Joel, I hear I see hi Levi. And Ross and yourself, did you wish to make a presentation or have discussion?
So once we took this back from the last meeting, we assigned this to Lori, and Lori's been working this. I'm going to let Lori address this agenda item.
Great, thanks, Joel. So it looks like Ross Tabor is from the golf course is still connecting to audio, and then we were going to have Eric Johansson also from our engineering department join to address any questions about the legal description. So Summer, do we have Eric?
Carly said that Eric is having some internet issues in Castle Valley and won't be able to join.
Okay, well, so we'll do the best that we can, and if we need to, we can address questions that we can now, and if we need to, maybe we can contact Eric somehow to see if there's any.
Should we get Eric on the phone? Should we have Eric call in?
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
I answered my question myself, so I don't need him anymore.
Okay, well, that's actually that's a good question. Does anyone right now think that we need to get Eric on the phone for questions about the legal description or the map, which is Exhibit A?
Maybe Kaylin can just share the answer that he found.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
the question.
Well, the question is why is the parcel upon which the parking lot and clubhouse excluded from the contract? And the Grand County parcel mapper indicates that the Moab Country Club owns that parcel.
That's correct. That's correct. Right. So there is a part of the actual golf course operations that Moab Country Club owns versus the city. Okay. With that, anybody else have questions about the legal description where we think we might need Eric?
No.
Okay. Lots of.
Yeah.
Mike.
Well, this, maybe I'm jumping ahead of the gun here, but when it comes to assessing a fee on their profits and so forth, because the building itself is apparently excluded from the legal description, does that mean any profits that they earn in the building that's excluded from the legal description be exempt from that fee?
No, the way the contract's written, that is not the case.
Okay, I just wanted to verify that. Thank you.
Sure. And so, okay, with that, it looks like we have everybody we need for the meeting. And then Mayor, I'm just going to briefly kind of explain where we are from where we started out. So you had a proposed lease agreement at the last meeting, and with the input from the council at the last meeting on April 28th, I went ahead and made those changes and revisions. And then to make things easier, I gave you all a red line copy, which is in your packet of the changes, a clean copy, but then just for sake of clarity, I summarized the changes in a document called Golf Course Lease Proposed Resolution 2620, Summary of Modifications to the Lease Agreement. I think it's self-explanatory. So my plan was I was just going to highlight a couple of things, and then at the maybe save your questions, and at the end, once I've highlighted a few things, we can go with any questions, if that's okay with everybody. Okay, so the legal description has been reformatted, and Eric Johansson from our engineering department mapped the legal description to Exhibit A. And so that way you can look and you can see what parcel 1 is, and you can look at and see what it is on the map. Exhibit A will be incorporated as part of the contract. And the one issue, since I submitted the materials for your packet, is I got a chance to talk to Ross Tabor from the golf course, and I'm just going to highlight on the reporting deadlines that are in the lease agreement. Indicated that we would like the reporting to be before no later than January 31 of each year. And Ross had requested that for the reporting period, he would prefer it to be February 15, if that's okay with you. And the reason being that if you look at the financial statements for its paragraph, it's on the modifications, it's number 5, paragraph 12. that the lessee would provide the financial statements. And what Ross pointed out is that they approved their financial statements under their bylaws. They approved those in January, their meeting in January. And that meeting is on let's see. Yeah, so their meeting is the last Monday in January. So Ross was just concerned that January 31 might not give them enough time to approve their financials, get them in the right format, and get them to us. So his request was just, if you all are agreeable, we would make and I thought for consistency's sake, make those reporting deadlines February 15. So that was the one thing I wanted to highlight modifications, is that the January 31 date, if you're agreeable, I have no issue with it being February 15. And then the other thing that I was going to highlight was the issue of the 1.5% of any profits. Councilmember Duncan had a question on that. All of us, myself, City Manager Joel Linares, and the golf course, our understanding was that that meant gross revenue minus expenses. So that's what we thought the definition of profits meant. And that is for you all to agree with and decide upon, but that was the understanding that all of us had. The one other thing I just wanted to highlight was the on number 6 on the modifications, paragraph 13, the requirement that the golf course provide an independent financial review each year. In discussions with Ross, they do have an accounting firm that does their finances, but this implication is that those documents would be an independent certified public accountant and reviewing those, which there is a cost to that. So the question from the golf course to you all is that this was, I'm assuming, added back in as part of the 1.5%. We need to see what kind of financials and independently verify those. So the question is, do you in fact want those annually? Or is that something that you would be willing to do based on a request from council? So changing this, instead of this being an automatic, that perhaps it would be something that you could request should you want it. And that's just, the golf course is fine either way, but just had flagged that because that is an additional cost for them. And then I think that those were on the second page. The other thing I just wanted to point out is there were other changes that I needed to make for clarity's sake. And I just highlighted those for transparency. There wasn't anything really noteworthy on those. The last thing I would point out is that the golf course did provide their financials, and that was included in your packet. And they were also nice enough to kind of do like a Word document summary of some things about the golf course. So I just wanted to point those out, that the golf course, those came from the golf course, and that summary document about the operations was prepared by the golf course. So those are some of the things that I wanted to highlight. And at this point, the resolution itself, Councilmember Duncan did point out there were a couple things I didn't catch on that document. There were just a few corrections. So I'm happy to make those corrections in the resolution, and I can do a screen share, make those corrections if everyone's agreeable to those corrections, and do a screen share so you can see what those changes are for purposes of a motion should we get to that point. So with that, I think maybe we turn it over to questions, if that's okay with you, Mayor.
Yeah, that's fine. And do you want to actually prompt those questions? You had in your presentation kind of prompted a question or two. So do you want to start with that?
Sure. I think the first question being is the council agreeable to February 15 instead of January 31 for the reporting deadlines?
And I suppose a straw poll with like thumbs up would work for that. Yes, Kaylin is good. Okay, looks like everyone's good with that. And what was the other?
Okay, so let me just make a note of that. And then the other question being the independent financial review in paragraph 13. The question being, is that something that you want the golf course to provide automatically prior to now February 15th of every year? Do you want them to automatically provide that, or do you want it to be at your discretion to request that should you feel that there's a need for an independent financial review? You'll get their financial statements every year, but this would be hiring an outside entity to review their financial statements and provide that information.
Karen?
I would just say that between the fact that they have an accountant that's doing their statements, they're sharing that, and then it's also being shared with our financial director, I think that would be, for me, that would be adequate enough.
So with, oh, Tawny, yes?
Yeah, I would agree with Karen on that, they're providing those financial statements. If there are any red flags between our finance director and city manager and city attorney, I think if there are red flags, they'll bring those to us. And if we feel like we need to request an independent review, then we can. I don't see any sense in making them incur another expense, just when they're providing us basically the information.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Both statements. Thank you.
Okay. And Kaylin, good with that as well?
Yes.
And Ronnie? Okay. So then I suppose, is there more to present? Shall we just go into questions now? Any questions from the council? I would also entertain a motion. Karen?
I just was curious, number 5, Lori, as a council member, and I don't know how everyone else feels about this, but I'm not really interested in making a judgment on what their green fees are. And I'm just curious I mean, if it was a city golf course, I could see the point of doing that, but considering that this is a nonprofit and, you know, they are trying to run their own business, is there a reason to keep that as the review of the fees proposed for every year?
It looks like it can just be a reporting to you as part of the reporting that they would do before the 15th. Joel.
That was in the original agreements way back in the 1959 original. My guess is that they were reviewing how people were being admitted and how people were being charged in the golf course in the early decades. Golf courses historically have a negative history towards some of that stuff. So my guess is that stuff was initially put in there to make sure there wasn't any issues with discrimination or other things. And I don't see a reason for it to continue to be in there, especially with them being a not-for-profit and being responsible for their own bottom line.
Ronnie?
I don't have any mistrust there. I'm just asking like in terms of best practices, because it's nothing we have to instill and get in their business for, but is there any kind of legal advantage, just with a nod to history, that at some point down the line, especially since the contract seems to have been written with an interest in making sure that, you know, local residents could go, and this is largely, you know, viewed as a benefit for local residents, just, you know, goodness forbid, you know, someone ever was in charge that, you know, had astronomically large green fees or something that were cost prohibitive. I mean, is there any advantage to leaving it in there?
Ronnie, I think the answer to your question, oh, go ahead, Joel.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think Joel's point is right, that it was probably in there for a different reason at the outset, but I don't think there's any harm in leaving it in. Right now, it's a reporting requirement, you know, that it would be something that would be in the presentation that would come to you. You can look at it and decide that you don't want to touch it. You have no interest in changing it or affecting the greens fees. You can just be aware of it. And should we find that that's not working out, we can, you know, address that if the contract needs to be modified.
Yeah. So for my 2 bits on the subject, I'm not a golfer. I have no idea what's a reasonable green fee or not, but I would expect that since golfers who patronize this golf course and others as well will, they're going to set their green fees at a reasonable competitive level. And, I guess I have no problem leaving it in the contract, but I wouldn't expect us to act on it ever, often, if ever. But, either way.
Tawny, then Karen?
I think it's worth leaving in for the reasons that Mike and Ronnie both said. It is a reporting requirement, and it gives us an idea what's being charged. And, from the last couple of meetings we've sat through, we keep hearing, our green fees are the lowest in the state, our water rates are the lowest, our sewer rates were the lowest. We don't always have to come in at the very bottom. There's an expectation that our golf course can be a little more lucrative for them and for the city. And I think it's just a point to watch.
Karen, go ahead. Yeah.
I make a motion to approve the resolution 28/2020, a resolution approving the golf course lease agreement with the changes of changing the dates from January 31st to February 15th, I believe it was, and the grammatical changes that Lori was going to make.
Summer, is that a clear motion for you?
Yes, I have that Councilmember Guzman Newton moved to approve the resolution with the changes to the date for reporting to February 15th and the grammatical corrections mentioned during the meeting.
Okay.
And
Is there a second? Lori, is there a second? Ronnie?
I'll second. I had 2 questions left I was hoping to ask before we vote, so.
Okay, so that's a second from Ronnie. Discussion. Lori first and then Ronnie.
Just one quick question. I was wondering if the motion should include the other discussed change of putting the independent financial review at the discretion of council rather than automatically.
Yes.
So Karen, if you want to go ahead and state that you would amend the motion to include those items. And
Yes.
then Ronnie, say if you're favorable to that amendment.
So I am in favor of changing that amendment that Lori mentioned.
Amending the motion.
Motion.
Yes. Ronnie.
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Lori. Ronnie now.
Oh, okay. I just had 2 more questions, Lori, and I think this makes sense to me, but I just wanted to make sure I asked you. So I noticed we now have paragraph 22 making note of 365 days notice. And so on the one hand, that makes perfect sense to me because it's a year and it gives someone time to pivot on either end. But on the other hand, and I understand that's with the exception of the watershed issue. So I just need a little help. Do I have to worry about any scenarios in which 365 days would be too much?
I don't think so. Generally, we discussed about a year's notice being fair for both the city and the golf course. Joel?
I think you do in one scenario, and that was the water. And that's why we carved the water scenario out. And our concern was if they were using chemicals or something that was causing a problem to our watershed, we wanted to be able to terminate the agreement immediately, basically, and rectify that situation. That was the one we could come up with. Because this contract is so old, because these operations have went on literally for decades, there needs to be a pretty significant notary to remove things, to get things squared up, to avoid legal issues. If you were to terminate this agreement, there would definitely need to be a wind down period based off past practices. So that's why we put the year in. Anytime we were going to want to remove ourselves from this agreement, that would be a situation most likely where we were selling the property for a development. That would take a year to even get to that point. I mean, there would be so many red flags and things going on that we were getting to a point to give that year warning to even get to that people would get that notice. And it would take us years to get to that point in that type of a process anyways. I think we are a governmental entity. It's a trust property essentially because it's held by the community. And for us to do something like that would take a huge amount of time. I think Lions Back's a good example. That was the Sitla project, and I think we're going on year 15, and they still haven't turned dirt. I would hate to think it would take that long, but a year or 2 or 3 to get that property where it was sold and out the door and going is very realistic. A year notice is not going to, it would not slow that process down. We would have ample time to give notice and keep working through the process.
Mike?
Oh.
Oh, Ronnie, you're still going. I
Oh,
apologize.
sorry. I just had one more, and that was, I wasn't sure, Joel, when I had my meeting with you, is there any value, and thanks Levi, because Levi sent me some more information on nitrates and stuff. So I'm just still struggling a little bit with, and I just need advice from you guys on just, is there any value to asking our water board if there's any reason just in the course of the next year, there's anything else they want us, to monitor or consider, or not necessary? That was the one thing that was left confusing for me.
I don't know that it would hurt to ask them, and I don't think it would hurt to approach them. I don't know that we need to hold up the agreement. Lori and I have worked with Ross and Rob getting this project done. Ross and Rob have been excellent, and they've been awesome partners to work with. Anything we've asked them, they've gladly done. They have as much concern with the watershed and them not having an impact as we do. They live here, they're residents of this community. They don't want to be responsible for causing us a water crisis. So I think if we go forward and the water board has issues and we approach Ross and Rob about those issues, I have not seen one indication whatsoever that they wouldn't be on board with whatever we need to do in order to make sure.
Yeah, no, and I wasn't implying, anybody has any, I was just like, oh, okay, is there anything, I don't know, extra? I haven't thought about, just because I don't know everything about everything. So, okay, no, thanks. That's helpful. And I did want to thank the country club board, because all that extra information was really helpful. Yeah.
Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, there's no need to change anything on about what I'm to say, but just for you guys' education, the question about water, I see where the golf course is getting their water out of Ken's Lake. That is, the county differentiates between irrigation water that comes out of Ken's Lake and so-called culinary water that they charge their residents. The latter is much more expensive. If they get it out of Ken's Lake, then it's highly unlikely they're ever going to buy any water from us at so-called commercial rates, which I assume to mean culinary water rates that the city charges, because it would also be much more expensive. I think we don't care because they rarely, if ever, use it. But I just wanted to clarify that when you say commercial water rates, it's a little ambiguous, but they're highly unlikely to use it considering the price, but that's okay.
Is there any other discussion or deliberation on this agenda item? And I apologize. I think I have a chicken laying an egg right now, so it might get loud. If there's no other discussion or deliberation, I will go ahead and call for the vote. Oh, Kaylin, go ahead.
I just like the staff and the board of the Moab Country Club for taking the time to clean up this contract. I really appreciate it. And to thank the Moab Country Club for providing this service to our community, because it would be a big add for the city to take that on. And so I really appreciate the partnership.
Agreed. Okay.
Agreed.
With no further deliberation, I will call for the vote. And just give me a thumbs up. Everyone's clear on the proposed, okay, and the amendments. Okay. Ronnie.
Oh, sorry. Was that a Ronnie or Tawny?
Ronnie.
Oh, sorry. Aye.
Kaylin.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Tawny.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. We're at our final agenda item. item number 3, budget update. I want to just clarify to council and anyone watching that this agenda item is meant to be a brief update from Clint, but not to because we're in a special meeting. I just wanted to reiterate that this is not trying to get in front of any big budget proposal or presentation to all of us. So I think what we're going to receive from Clint this morning is a sneak peek or the trailer to our budget update on Tuesday. So I just wanted to reiterate that because we're in a special meeting and this is quite a hot topic of discussion. So Clint, thanks for being awesome and being part of our team and being with us this morning.
Thank you. I mean, I'll be brief. It's just a prelude to Tuesday. I'll be putting a presentation together. I mean, staff, I mean, everyone's obviously been looking at this quite closely with everything that's going on in comparative to where our tentative budget is. And obviously there's going to have to be probably some changes that are going to need to be made. And that's kind of more where I'm at, is just to let you know that you will be seeing some stuff come out and to be prepared for Tuesday. I mean, we've been looking at everything as a whole and trying to crunch numbers in every direction that we can to try to make things work. I mean, I think if you look at what the county's doing, you look at everyone in the state's doing, I mean, there's a 20 to 30% loss of revenue is what I'm going to be probably projecting, and I'll be presenting something in that manner on Tuesday. So that's all I got, though. I don't want to take too much time today, but that was it.
Thanks, Clint. And questions from the council. Ronnie first and then Tawny.
Clint and Joel, Joel's back. So you guys know I got some questions from the community about the Rec and Aquatics Center, and you touched on it earlier, and I was just gonna just double check. So if for folks interested in that, might we be discussing that a little bit more Tuesday about kind of the pros and cons there and the cost concerns and the health concerns? Okay, great. And then, okay, great.
I'll be breaking that down in detail so that we can see exactly what we're up against going forward.
And we thought about doing it today and doing some of that today, but we felt like not doing it at the regularly scheduled meeting was just a bad look. And we don't want people to think we're dodging it. We want to do it when people know they could tune in. We're going to do it Tuesday.
Okay, that's helpful. And then I just had a question. We have a bunch of public hearings coming up for our meeting on Tuesday. And if I'm looking at this right, we're addressing, sorry, I'm going to tilt my other computer. Let's see, public hearing on our fiscal year budget for 2021. And then we have a proposed ordinance adopting the city pay plan schedule and adopting exempt and elected official salaries for that year, and then a public hearing for the master fee schedule. And I just noticed when I was taking the heads up at the look at the packet that there are no agenda summaries. And so since we're having a public hearing, is there anything you could just generalize about those items if people in the community are thinking about commenting that maybe isn't obvious just from looking at the schedule itself or the documents with the numbers?
That's a great question, Ronnie. I will get something on the agenda that the people can look at.
Oh, okay. So there might be an amendment or something.
Yes, I'll put an amendment.
Okay. And this is our first public hearing under electronic conditions. So I just wanted to double check. We're going to handle it the same way as citizens to be heard, right? Just so people might get confused because the county, I think, is having call-in. So I just wanted to make sure that's how it's working, right?
That's right. We're doing the public hearing in the same format as we do citizens to be heard.
Okay, cool. One last question, Joel. Do you have any idea would that amendment post today or Monday?
Post by noon.
Oh, okay. All right, thanks. That was my questions. Thanks, that's helpful. Oh, well, actually, I lied. Is there anything, is there any heads up you want us to know about the wrap tax? Obviously, we have a little bit in the packet about that. So just continuation to help us understand the process.
I'll do an outline to make it more readable for the, excuse me, I'll do a presentation so it's more understandable, but that
Okay.
outline is what you need to, like, that is the nuts and bolts of it.
Okay, sorry, those were kind of related questions, but kind of not. Thank you.
Connie, you had a question?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to make a comment. Some of us have done our one-on-ones with staff regarding the budget, and I just wanted to tell them thank you. They have really put a lot of work into the budget and to what's going to happen going forward. And they deserve a lot of credit for the work that they've done. And we're all going to take the heat for this, but as long as we all know why it was done, it makes it a little bit easier to do it when we're united. So that was all I wanted to say.
Any other comments regarding the budget update coming to us on Tuesday? And then, will every council member have met with staff as of Tuesday to?
Yes, we still have to meet. We still have to meet with Karen, and we're going to do that right after this.
Okay. Well, thank you all for meeting today. It's a beautiful Friday. Unless there are any other comments about our budget update on Tuesday, I would entertain the motion to adjourn.
I will so move.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tawny. All those in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Motion passes. We're adjourned. Bye, everybody. Levi,
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks,
Go
Clint.
get your egg.
Bye.
Bye-bye.